What is up, Scrub fam? Pat here with another video. This is the, I guess, filthy casual series that Matt normally does. I decided to do one because the deck I really want to talk about, that I put a lot of time into, even though the build on your screen probably doesn't look like it, is actually Frieza Prison. I think that the leader is really good, and I will go over the deck list and try to explain some of my card choices and why I actually think that the leader is good. It's not tier 1, but I do think he is good, and I think that he is just a few things short of being excellent. Before we jump into the video, as always, guys, got to give a shout out to Allek over at beardedcollectibles.com. If you guys have not done any of your pre-orders for Series 10 expansions, there's like a bajillion products coming out at this point. Just make sure you guys check out Allek, man. He's always going to give you guys the hookup with the best prices on all of the sealed product for Dragon Ball Super. So, why this leader? So I'm sure if you guys have ever watched any of the 3xG streams that we have done, at least since Dropbox 5, since Corona, started this whole crazy thing, I've been trying to make this leader work. And that's largely because it's a control leader. There's very few of them in the game. Obviously, I'm not going to, beat a dead horse. You guys already know, if you know who I am. I like playing control. Control is the most fun thing for me to play. I like playing a more slow and calculated game. And Frieza basically lets you do that because every turn he lets you search for a red extra card. And obviously when this card was printed, you could only get really negates with it, and then like Cabba's Awakening is kind of like its super combo. But as time has gone on, there has been quite a number of new tricks that have been added. On top of that, with Series 10, with the advent of Unison cards, it does two things, which I guess we will jump right into the first card, which is Shin Shenron, Unison of Calamity. This leader's major drawback has always been that it can't play any battle cards in the first 3 turns of the game. Unisons are basically fancy barrier deflect battle cards that, are not technically battle cards. So that means that Frieza is able to actually play cards that can attack in the first 3 turns of the game finally, which is a godsend to him. It's something that he absolutely desperately needed. Alternatively, or I should say in addition to that, everybody's on Unisons now, which means that battle cards in general are much weaker. If you look at the decks that are seeing play, they are winning with Unison cards, with their leader, with non-interactive extra card strategies such as Invoker, or they're just playing a bunch of free stuff. See Vegex, or I guess potentially Dredgeku, for example, with its repeatable 1-drops. So nobody's really playing these strategies that are super centric around battle cards, which means you're not going to be getting as rushed down as normal, unless again it's against something like Vegex. So yeah, that is why I've decided to revisit the deck. And again, going back to Shin Shenron, Unison of Calamity. Ideally, we really want a 2-cost red Unison in this slot, but we'll get into that when we go over the rest of the card choices, I should say, what you see in the sideboard. So Shin Shenron obviously is the best red Unison. If you're red, you probably should be playing it. It's 20k. It lets it so that all of your cards can attack cards in active mode, which is super relevant for getting rid of pesky blockers, pesky utility cards, things like that. The +1 is basically a board clear. It helps you stabilize against aggro. The -2 gives us some form of control by being able to actually take cards out of our opponent's hand. Cabba's Awakening is basically a staple in this leader. It's basically our super combo, since most super combos in the game, I would say pretty much all of them but one, are 2 or 3 drops. And I guess some of the new ones are also 1-drops. You can't play them in Frieza. The only super combo that Frieza is able to play, as far as I know, is Plucky Dynasty Pan from Crossworlds, or not Crossworlds, Colossal Warfare, the set with the Goku's Lineage characters, but that doesn't really help us because we are not a Yellow or Goku's Lineage leader, so it's basically a dead card. But yeah, you're going to play this no matter what. Paralysis Technique is an amazing card in this format. Most people, if they are going to attack at all with battle cards, it's because they have a really wide board presence. So Paralysis Technique, -5's everything, including leader cards. So chaining 1 or 2 of these together makes it so it's very difficult for your opponent to aggress on you with a deck like Vegex. I do think that Vegex probably will have a pretty good matchup against this deck in general, but it is still something that we have to play anyway. Next up is Frieza's Death Ball. This is the main, the mainstay of this deck, I should say. When this whole cycle of cards was shown in set 9, I really thought that Frieza's Death Ball was the worst card in the entire cycle. Having played with it now, I think the card is incredible, and it is arguably one of, if not the best card in the entire deck. So being able to pay 1 for a 25k swing is massive. This allows you, once you've started to slow down and stabilize the game, you can start using Frieza's Death Ball to basically guarantee that your opponent takes damage, because you can shrink your opponent's leader with this card. So I've had games where I've swung with a 10k Frieza on the front and chained together 2 Death Balls and basically made it so that that 1 damage is basically unblockable. You can force a lot of situations where your opponent just cannot block the damage. They just are forced to take it if they don't negate, and that's a seriously powerful thing that I just underrated. And when you play with this deck, you'll probably understand that like Frieza's Death Ball is basically everything. It's just super powerful. Afterimage is basically our sparking negate. I wouldn't fault you for changing this to Wolffang Fist. In fact, Wolffang Fist might actually be better against decks like Vegex. So test with it. Do whatever you want in this slot. Like the Afterimage is basically the flex slot. I just wanted to have a card where I could basically take my life as well as be tutorable and be another defensive option. Cease to Exist. Honestly, Cease to Exist is like the worst card in the entire deck. The only reason I actually play Cease to Exist is for its Activate Battle ability. It's tutorable combo power with my leader on the front side, and it has a obvious combo with Heartfelt Plea, which is we'll talk about when we get while we're playing it when we get to Heartfelt Plea. Next up is Son Gohan the Avenger. This is basically a 2-cost 20k beater that also is a negate, and it can shrink things, and in tandem with a card like Paralysis Technique, it can be a removal. So yeah, we're just going to play it. Because again, this leader doesn't have too many great options in the slot. Topo Righteous Aid is the best floodgate in the color, so of course we're playing it. Loyal Kikono is basically our secondary super combo. It is, you combo with it and you get basically a red extra card back as well as the 10k combo power. So what you're most likely going to always pick up with this is either going to be Kaba's Awakening, a negate, or most importantly Frieza's Death Ball. You can basically play Death Ball when you only have 1 in your hand. It'll go to the drop because extra cards activate and then go to the drop area, and then you'll activate, or I should say combo Loyal Kikono, and then pick back up your Frieza's Death Ball in the same combo step and fire it off again. So for 3 energy, you are basically getting a 60k swing, which is absurd when you think about it. So if you drag the game out long enough and you see enough Kikonos and Death Balls, you're going to win. Vegeta Exploiting Weakness. It's the only board sweep that we can play. We can't actually play Concentrated Destruction Kaioken Goku, so that kind of sucks. I really wish we could. So Vegeta is the next best thing. Important to remember this card does get you the Senzu Bean effect. So if your opponent resolves a Unison, you can counterplay with Vegeta for no value just to get the pump if you really need it to stabilize against them for whatever reason. We'll jump ahead and talk about the Dragon Ball's Negative Energy Overflow. It's just the best secret rare, and it's pretty much the only one that we can play besides Army Reborn. I think Army Reborn is a trap of a card. Negative Energy Overflow is basically going to end up being the best secret rare. My personal opinion right now is that there's only, until we see the rest of the Series 10 secrets, there are only 2 viable secret rares in this format. I should say 3 maybe, to a lesser extent. It's basically the SS4 Vegeta, in very fringe scenarios, but almost always if your deck can play it, you should be playing Cell Xeno. If your deck can't play Cell Xeno, you probably should be playing Negative Energy Overflow Dragon Ball. It's just, they are that good. I could see an argument being made for maybe Scramble or Power Potara. Scramble I've only seen to some moderate, not even great success in Surge Broly, and I think that Power Potara is like overall, it just feels like a lot of the old school secrets just feel a lot worse. So going into the actual other cards in the deck. So if you guys have noticed or you've played a ton of games in this format, Deflect is basically everything. Because Unisons are so strong and they enable so many powerful free counterplays, unless you are basically playing things for free, again, see Vegex, or doing things early, again, see Vegex, you really want your cards to be low investment in terms of energy, 1s and 2 drops, or 0s if you can get it. And if you have to pay more, 3 or more, the card better have Deflect or be some kind of crippling counterplay card. So Untap Power SS3 Son Goku is one of the few Deflect cards that is actually in the color. It's also largely here for combo power. You will most likely be using it for combo power and energy, but in a pinch in the late game, you can resolve this card for 5, untap an energy and draw 1, which will basically then let you go into Triple Flash, to get to recoup the hand, as well as be a pretty good finisher. Triple Flash, again, also has Deflect. Red is sorely lacking, I feel like, in terms of deflect for threats. Not so much, compared to green, but these are pretty much two of the most reliable. And then comes Heartfelt Plea. So if you've noticed, our negates are Topo and Gohan. They are 20k bodies. You'll most likely always resolve one of them in the span of a game because you have 8 of them. So one will stick on board at some point. Mid-combo step when you're at 4 life or less, you can combo with Cease to Exist, which will be add to the base power of the card, which will let you awaken to get Heartfelt Plea out, or you can resolve Frieza's Death Ball and choose to pump a battle card and then also minus whatever you want. It's important to note that you don't have to be attacking with like Topo or Gohan. You can be attacking with your leader and use Death Ball and choose to target the card and then get the shrink effect mid-combo on the leader. Or the battle card that you're attacking, and then awaken into Heartfelt Plea. So Heartfelt Plea, again, just gives us another source of damage, another finisher, as well as some card draw. And then, again, it can go, because it is a GT Goku that is red and 5 or more, it can go into Triple Flash, so that is, again, the late game finisher. You'll most likely be using Heartfelt Plea just as like a beater in the mid game. I'll be honest with you, very rarely do we actually use the Triple Flash package. It's just that red doesn't really have too many other options, and that leads us into the segue where we talk about the sideboard cards. The big thing I think that this leader is missing is actually the same thing that red is missing as a whole, which is a 2-cost red unison that is actually powerful. If you look in the sideboard, you'll see that we have this card here, Frieza Fairweather Fiend over here. It is really powerful. This card is basically Raider's Warcry if you have a 2-cost red unison play, with the upside of being able to kill something every time your opponent activates a counter skill. That includes negate. So when your opponent negates something, you can just minus 30k ignoring barrier or something, which is really, really, really powerful. And it's a really strong card. Unfortunately, it's not Frieza's army, so we can't use it as a free negate with the leader, but this is one of the best 4-cost and higher cards that we can actually play with this leader. I don't need to think I have to explain to you how a control deck that has access to a card like Raider's Warcry is super powerful. If you guys are paying any attention at all in Series 9, you know that that's basically the premise for how Surge Coup operated the red-yellow one and the red-yellow-blue one. So this card is really, really powerful. Unfortunately, we only have the 2-cost Gotenks Unison, and I don't think he is as impactful as some of the other 2-costs. Like, honestly, he's like way behind. And then we got the uncommon Vegeta, which is also just a big letdown. So I don't know. Like, this deck just really needs a 2-cost Unison. Like, Gotenks is probably the best one because of its, ability to self-awaken. So if you guys don't like the Triple Flash plus Untap Power package, I would still probably advocate for leaving a Heartfelt Plea in here. You can actually just take these out and try out Fairweather Fiend plus Gotenks Unison of Rage. If there ever was, again, a 2-cost red unison is worth a damn, then you actually have a pretty good turn progression with this leader. You can turn 1, tutor an extra card, leave up a card like Paralysis Technique or Death Ball or After Image. Turn 2, you can leave up a card like Topo or Gohan or go into a 2-cost unison if the matchup allows it, if you're playing something that's not really fast. Turn 3, you can, again, either hold up Topo or Gohan or go into Sin Shenron if the matchup allows for it. And then turn 4 onwards, if you've successfully gotten that far, you can basically just take over the game with things like Death Ball and Kikono loops, your counter plays, and then progressing into things like Heartfelt Plea and Untap Power plus Triple Flash. So yeah, again, it's not the most flashy deck. You can see it's a lot of 4-ofs. It seems very basic, but it's really solid, and if you're really patient and put the time into it, I think it can score quite a number of wins. I definitely think it's a contender at your local. I seem to think this deck, I think of it a little bit more highly than I think the rest of the guys at 3xG. So like, I do think if it did have like that one piece, right? Like if it did have that one good 2-cost unison, and then obviously, maybe 1 or 2 good red extra cards, I do think that this is a contender and could potentially top a regional. I probably don't think this leader will ever really be tier 1, but I do think that he is a lot stronger now than he was in set 6 and also in set 7. I know that players like Sandy were a huge believer in this leader at one point in set 7 when I honestly dismissed him as trash, but as the card pool has grown in this game, I really do think that this Frieza is really good. So definitely check it out. Hopefully you guys really like this deck profile. Again, it seems pretty basic, but you know, the idea is to at least get the idea out there, promote the fact that maybe Frieza is a lot better than people are giving him credit. Just like with Gold Frieza in set 1, I do think that this Red Frieza from Series 6 is, you know, has a lot of untapped potential, and he has like a lot of like other tricks that I don't even have in this deck. He has the final mission, for example, from Draft Box 5 that you can use to shuffle back your negates repeatedly, as well as be a board wipe. It's a little bit slow, so I didn't include it in this deck, but you know, the idea is there. There is a lot of untapped potential, and I really hope that more and more of you guys pick up this leader and at least try to figure out all of like his little hidden tricks and things that maybe I might have potentially missed. So yeah, guys, that's gonna be it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As always, if you like this video, consider subscribing, like, and comment as well. We really appreciate it here at 3x3 Productions. And if you're looking to level up your game at all, please consider checking out our Patreon. Links will be in the description below. As always, peace.